debugger development, and I have been doing a little bit of work off stream. So last time I was putting the framework in place to allow you to select multiple different files, just to be able to load files into this pane from those which have been indicated as source files within the executable. So a little extension to the work that I did before was just to bind a couple of keys to changing between the files that are available. So you can just hit plus or minus, and you can see on the screen here we are cycling through, I think it's like 7 or 8 files. Yeah, there's 10 files in total in that are linked to this particular executable. And you can see 0 is the main file. And we're able to just like hit keys and go between them. That just loads up the file. And you even see, if we scroll down a little bit in some of these files, hopefully, there is some places which have line number information. Although I'm not convinced actually that that's correct. These could well be, let's just check this, the first one's on 198. I think that's actually the line information for this file. Yeah. Okay, so there isn't line information necessarily. Let me just pause this music. There isn't necessarily line information there. I just need to correct my debug output here to show line information for the file that I'm looking at. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a great deal of line information for the other files, because they're mostly header files, and the majority of the header files don't actually contain code that gets executed so much as they contain declarations and other such things. They're used during compilation, but they're not necessarily executed directly. Yeah. Right, so that's maybe I could just start by trying to fix that line number information. So that appears on the render text pane or something. Yeah, so render text pane content. So I'm still in the uncompressed phase on a lot of the code that's in here. It's all just kind of splattered out in one big function, and there's duplication between functions. So that's why things are kind of a little bit hairy in here. So somewhere in here we've got line labels, we've got draw, debug, line info indicators, so that's the bit I'm interested in here. So how does that work? We go through and we ask for debug infos for line for this binary, and we're just giving a line index, but surely this needs to know which file we're asking for as well. Let's have a quick look up here so we can jump to this function debug line infos. So during the loading of the debug information, I construct a basically large table of or mapping from line numbers to instruction addresses. And this is just doing a simple linear search through the debug information. So interesting. I've even got to do here, pass this in when we can select which source file to view, which is exactly what we're doing now. So how prescient was that? Oh, hey Zach. Debugger's work is going fine. We are getting places slowly. But yeah, there's a number of things that I kind of skimmed over and didn't implement, just because you want to get the real meat of the thing working. You want to be able to get the thing stepping and watching variables and stuff. And now I'm just going over to add support for those details that you need, like what happens if you have multiple files in your program and you'd like to be able to view the different files and debug through files, and I'm not quite doing that at the moment. So just to clean up this bug with the debug information, it's showing the debug information for the main file even when you have a different file selected. So this is getting this main source file index, okay, and it is checking here to see does the line information we got match the main source file. And what we really want to do is tell it which file we're looking at. So we've got the binary file here. Honestly, do we need that? Yeah, I guess that's a good idea. And then we want to say, I think this is a U32, source file name index. We'll pass that in there. Really not very difficult to do this, so I'm just going source file name index. I think it's going to be I was set up for success here. This is going to be a trivial change. I think I'm going to just delete this line here. Give it a compile and see what breaks. Oh dear, stuff breaks. I really didn't think that would break anything. Okay, where are we? Oh, of course, I need to actually start specifying those values. So we need to know which file we're showing. And we have that, that's the text file. In fact, we've got something off of main here, so if I just quickly load up my header file. I think in main I've got this temporary source file index, which I'll get at some point. I'll probably change for something else, but for now that is the file that we're currently looking at. Not going to work when we want to show multiple files at the same time, but we don't do that yet. There are probably other places I call this function. Okay, let's just quickly close down this pane. Okay, so we just need to go through and fix all the locations where I do this. This is in the scroll binary based on source line. So this is when you go to a particular source line on the source pane, and it wants to scroll the binary to the matching location. So we need to tell it which file we're looking at. And here we're just pulling the line index. We're passing line index in, so should we just pass in the source file name index as well? Then we can pass it in. Yeah, I wouldn't be too excited to try it out. It's not really in a usable state yet. Unfortunately, Zach. We're getting somewhere though. It will be there eventually. There's just a tremendous number of things to support. Okay, where is this? Debug line info is for line. Line to breakpoint at. Okay, this is when you press insert, it sets a breakpoint, and it knows which line you have selected, so it would like to find the instruction that corresponds to that line. So at this point we kind of know that we're looking at the source file index. Yeah. So here we need to call in and pass source file name index. That's called source file index. Should probably be more consistent with that. Okay. Looks like there's a bunch of places where I need to do this. Okay, and that one. See how we're doing. Basically anywhere I move around in the source pane I want to. At the moment I just have it automatically scroll to the corresponding disassembly. Okay, it looks like it might have compiled. See if it crashes. Okay. Let's just see if that I've broken anything with that. With those changes. So if I find some line information, so this is just the normal cursors, and paging up and paging down works. So the question is, do these line numbers, if I change to a different file, do they stay? Or do they go? Oh, well that's interesting. I found some lines here which correspond to apparently parts of read file size. So I think this is showing another bug. Yeah, you see this is the disassembly. We've got the address of the instruction. I think this is the distance from the start of the disassembly, or the actual executable code. This is the line number that we think it corresponds to. So you can see that this is matching the line number, but this is probably the wrong file, right? Because this is read file size, and I think read file size is one of the functions that is not part of standardf.h. So there's another bug. It's not showing the tabs on the side anymore, but it's still got the linking going incorrectly. So I don't expect to see any executable lines mapped to any files other than the main one, because these are all header files, and all kind of see header files. I do see some weird characters in here though. Are these tabs maybe? That's not rendering them out correctly if so. Okay, so I've got another bug to fix. Oops. Which is when we move here, we do a scroll based on source line. Which is the code I was just in. So what's going wrong here? just looking at this loop here to try and work out what it's doing. Because I don't see what's going wrong here. What I'm thinking is maybe it wasn't scrolling. I don't know I can't remember whether it was actually scrolling when I did this. So if I open this assembly, go down to line 201. Here. And then I switch to a new thing. I go to line 201 in here. Yeah, it's not that it was scrolling. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with the code I was looking at. It's just doing the highlight. And the highlight is done in the disassembly pane rendering. So as we render disassembly pane content. So somewhere in here it's going to have like highlight current address. Is that the one? No, I think that's the currently executing instruction. But somewhere in here it's going to be looking at the line that we have. No, it is this part here. Oh, it's this part here specifically. If the highlighted source line is not 0, then if the line I'm currently drawing is so the instruction line I'm currently drawing, I go and look up to see if there's any corresponding line information and which line it matches. So what I should do here is also check that we are looking at the same file. So where do we get the file information from is the question. So I think I've got this kind of cheat here where I set this value, highlight source line index. So that's kind of poking into the disassembly pane some information about what's currently going on in the source pane. I wonder why I did that instead of just getting that information directly from the source pane. I think it's because we don't currently pass that information in, and for some reason I thought that wasn't a good idea to do. But that means I now need to add in an extra thing, which is highlight source file index, which will be our main source file index. I'm not a big fan of this. So yeah, perhaps find a neater way to communicate the currently selected line in the source pane to the disassembly pane. Let's see where else do I set this? So if we have a source line index and the line index is equal to that, and our line info source file index equals pane, highlight, source, file index, then we're good. We should check that's the right name for that. So line info. That is not looking right. There we go. Source file name index. I do really need to be more consistent. In fact, I might just go and change all file indexes to file name indexes. Beginning to think I chose the wrong way. I should have just done it without the name. Oh well. Nearly done. Okay. So the other thing we need to do is go to disassembly pane. So it's just defined in pane here. This is the disassembly pane section. Write a note here to remind myself which of these is which. I think this counts for memory disassembly as well. So in here, darn right, not sure I'd like this being here. Let's just pop that off there. Good. Pane does not name a type. Did I accidentally break something here with a careless key press? Okay. That compiled. Rock and roll. So let's bring up disassembly. Let's go down to 201. There we go. And then I change file. Go to line 201. Still does it. It still does it. Why does it still do it? So let's have a quick look through. When I hit plus here, we set source file for pane. But I'm not sure that we update the other, a couple of important variables like highlight source file name, etc. But I was thinking that when you press, excuse me, when you press down, it would do that. So you move text cursor down by 1, scroll the pane, set the highlight file name index to the main file name index, which you have updated, and set this source line index. So why doesn't this work? So we don't scroll. But when we render here, I know. I was looking at the wrong place. And this is a piece of hugely duplicated code right now. And right here, just want to pop the same bit of code in, because at the moment I thought it would be really nice to be able to debug my debugger while I was doing breakpoint development. So I created a separate toggle on the memory pane, on the disassembly pane. So when you're debugging, it will show you not what's loaded from the binary file, but what's actually loaded into memory. Because what you do when you set a breakpoint is you poke a value into memory that updates the instructions, which you won't see if you're looking at the memory showing you the mapping of the actual file. But you will see if you're looking at the copy that's inside the running process, where you've overwritten some values. Maybe I'll show that in a minute. So hopefully now we have fixed that problem in both places. So here we change to this. I need a jump to line. Might do some kind of modal input dialogues at some point. Right, okay, so now it's no longer highlighting, which is what I wanted to see. Okay. So if I run the process, hit continue, so we'll stop at the main breakpoint. I hit space, which says go to the currently executing line. It doesn't do that automatically at the moment because I want a bit of control. And that has flipped me to a new file, which is cool, which is the file that current breakpoint is in, or the currently executing line of code is in. And it's also flipped the disassembly view. Now, because I am on this breakpoint, what happens is when you hit a breakpoint, if you want to actually run the instruction that you have broken on, then you've got to change it back from being the breakpoint instruction to being the real instruction. And because you break on that point, I'm not sure about how this would work, but maybe if other threads were running, you'd want them to pass through that breakpoint. I'm not sure. But anyway, I resolve it as soon as I hit it. But maybe it should not do that. I'm not sure yet. But if I hit next, I've gone past that breakpoint. I set it back to being the breakpoint instruction. You can't see that in the assembly code here. As I said, this is looking at the file. But if I look in memory, by hitting tab, which changes my disassembly view into a memory disassembly view, then you can see there's an int3, which is the debug, drop to debugger instruction. So if I go down a little bit and say I want to set a breakpoint on this line, you see that it changes that address to an int3 as well. And what it does is it kind of mangles the instruction. So the instructions directly after that int3, unless they were 1-byte instructions, because the int3 is a 1-byte instruction. If it was like a 2-byte instruction, now the second byte is kind of potentially invalid. It does seem to have kept a kind of valid looking instruction there. But that's why you need to kind of change it back when you hit the breakpoint again. So if I hit continue here, it should hit this breakpoint, assuming it gets that far in the execution. It may not, because it would. Yeah, I think it probably won't actually, because that instruction is after this call to test, and test is like the main part of the program. So it's probably not going to jump to there. But if I set a breakpoint on the call to test, once I do that and scroll up, you can see it hitting that second breakpoint if I hit continue, hopefully. So this one here. I keep trying to point with my finger. It's not going to work. You can't see. There we go. So it hits that breakpoint and immediately changes it back into the real instruction, so that now I can hit next to step over it, and it changes it back to the breakpoint. As I say, that's not necessarily how it's going to stay working, because when I add multi-threaded support, there may be things that need to be done there. I'm not quite sure how that works on Linux. The way debugging with ptrace works is that you can only really interact with the debugged process when it's in a kind of stopped state. And to check what state it's in, you kind of call this system call called wait PID, or some wait status thing. It'll tell you what state it's in. But yeah, if you launch that yourself, you can kind of get notifications for that child process that you launch. But I'm not sure what happens when you have multiple threads. I think you have to wait on each thread to see what the state of each thread is. And each thread can possibly hit breakpoints independently, which is kind of a pain, because what happens if you're in the process of resolving those breakpoints? Say you want to step over an instruction on one thread, which means restoring the software breakpoint to the real instruction, but then at the same time another thread kind of goes through that should have stopped that breakpoint, but that breakpoint isn't set right now. That's a problem. But what I'm hoping is that when one thread hits the breakpoint, all the others just kind of pause where they are, which would solve that problem. Otherwise, I'd have to do some jiggery-pokery, some strange kind of processing to handle that. It's not a problem I think you'd have with hardware breakpoints, because hardware breakpoints are not written into the code of the program. They're written into, I guess, the processor. There's like a number of special registers. I think there's something like 4 or maybe 8. I can't remember exactly how many. And you can ask them to break on instructions. But they're cool because you can do other things than just break on an instruction. You can break on a memory write to a particular location, which is what a data breakpoint is. So I'd like to support those for sure at some point, but not yet. Anyway, this other line I'm drawing down the side here is actually kind of another piece of debug for scope recognition. It's telling you which scope this set of code is in under. So if we go up to another bit of the function, what function is this I'm looking at? Get next variable. So in get next variable you've got nested scopes here because you've got this outer function scope here, and then at some point here you go into this do scope, and then you go into this other inner scope, and then another inner scope here, and each time you go into these inner scopes it's drawing this line to represent which level you're at. That's what that is, if you were wondering. Now it's just a visual thing for me to be able to check that my watch window is working correctly. I think you kind of need to get to one of these bits of code to see what the scopes are, but you can see wherever we currently are, just about to call test, we have 2 scopes defined. So this white bordered area is one scope, and this second white bordered area is its parent scope. So this is the function we're in, main. So all the scope IP, file name, args, and arg count are defined within main. And then all of these other ones here are defined in the global scope. And the reason why I did this is so you can differentiate between 2 variables with the same name that are different scopes. Not something that's usually handled that well by debuggers. Anyway, that bug is fixed. So, what's the next thing I wanted to do? I was thinking about adding a key combination that would allow you to bring up a list of files that you could then filter and select from. I actually haven't done mouse input yet, so I'm not thinking of doing a widget just yet. But I do want something slightly better than the plus minus thing. Although having I think when you hit next, it will, and if you go step into another file, it will follow you, your view will follow you, so it does have that. Oh, I know there's another bug which is kind of annoying. Just I think when you hit next, it resets your file. Let's try that. I just want to check, see if that bug's for real. So if I start here, I hit continue, jump down here. If I hit next, I have a funny feeling that no, it doesn't do something weird. Just trying with all the panes open. What I thought is that this... Oh no, that's right, it is doing something. When I hit space, it's scrolling from the start of the file every time down to the current location, which I think that seems like a bug to me. You should just scroll directly from where you are. Let's just have a quick look at that. This has turned into a bug fixing stream rather than feature implementation. I probably don't have time to implement that that widget today in that case, but I will fix this instead. So I'm looking for space. So this is coming in, you hit space, it says look at the binary file and the currently executing address, try and get some debug information for that. If you find some, make sure to select the correct source file. And this is the problem, it's not checking here whether you're already on the correct source file. And so it's actually reloading the new source file into memory, which is going to zero out all of the scroll information. So all I need to do here to fix this, I think, is to say if debug line info source file name index is not equal to main source file name index, then we need to do this change. And I actually think I want to swap that around because I've assigned it down here in the other way around. So just for symmetry, I'm going to change those to the same, and hopefully that will fix that bug. That was quite easy. So we need to start debugging, jump to here, and now when I hit a new line, it just scrolls a little bit instead of from the start of the file. If I go to a different file, it doesn't keep my place, but I think that's okay for now, because that's a different feature. Okay, how long have I been going for? Yeah, let's call it another 15 minutes, and I'll be done. So the next thing to do is to think about adding a widget. Actually, I think I'm going to commit what I've got. So yeah. Add basic support for switching files, source files. So what I'm thinking is I want some kind of pop-up menu. I think I'm going to put it on Control O, because that's what I'm kind of used to for bringing up an outline of the program. Is that a good idea? No, we want to do Control F maybe? I don't know, it's not quite the same as what I was thinking, but yeah, let's do Control something. So here's the input controls. So if we hit F, say, and we also have I think it's modifiers, isn't it? let's just bracket that to be sure. There we go, then. So if we do Control F, we'll want to, we must put ourselves in a state where we capture the input. So that means, I think, having like a modal thing. Where, so it's like main current input capture. And we'll set that to a value. Just wondering if I want to pay for this. Something with a bounds, a title, a font. Enabled and type. I don't know. Don't know that I do. Kind of want something which maybe I do want a pane here. So maybe this could be a pane, and I can just set it to like file select pane or something like that. Or maybe just pane. I think I'm just going to do something specific this time. Like add in a new pane type. I'm not sure I'm going to keep that, but it seems like a simple thing to do. So this doesn't work if you have multiple panes of the same type, but that's not a thing that happens ever at the moment. But it would need to be changed. So feel like what we want up here is kind of like, this is where all the input happens. So it's kind of a general thing where you say switch on main current input capture, and you say if the current input capture is pane type file select, then you do a thing. In the default case, you do a different thing. And the different thing is like what everything we currently do now when we haven't captured the input. I think that's to do up there. I'm not sure if I need to keep that to do around, but let's take all of this input code, which there is rather a lot. Should probably put it somewhere else. Grab that. Let's just pop it in there. Hi Caravo Dev. What theme are you using? I am using, I think, Grovebox. Let me just check. Yeah, I'm using the Grovebox color theme with a dark background. Okay, so we set the input capture, and we need to open the pane as well. So how's that going to work? How's the current rendering happen? We just check which things are enabled here. So I guess what we should do is do like if main input, what's it called? Current input capture. Just gonna, this kind of feels temporary. I feel like there'll be multiple different kind of modal things that you'll need. But here we'll just be like render pane main render group main file select pane. Maybe it is the case that I can just ask whether this pane is enabled. Maybe that's the thing I should do instead of what I've got there. Okay. How are we doing for time? Another 5 or so minutes to get somewhere with this. So that just makes it a standard pane with a slightly different layout, a bit of layout information. So I think what I want to do here is say, again, let's check if this exists or is going to be drawn. If it's going to be drawn, then we want to update its layout. So take a main file select pane dot bounds. I kind of want a center dim here. Where we do screen center and then like V2. Something like that. So screen dim I think is just a V2. Yeah, so can I just divide that by 2? Is that the thing I can do? So see, the question there is, what have I implemented math-wise? So I think I have to do like 0.5f times that. Oh, C. That's so fun. And then let's create another helper here. Top left. No, rect. Center, then. So straightforward. Just go and do that. Work out where the corners are. So where are we? So I just need a little to do here. Need to make it like more widely applicable to all the different types of modal or pop-up menus that I might do. So I can imagine having like a switch here which says if like any of them are enabled, or if they're modal, probably any one of them could be enabled at the same time. I'm not sure if I'll keep them modal or whether I'll do them some other way. But it kind of makes sense that they'll capture your input until you have like escape or something. Perhaps I could have them not pop up, but instead just like become an extra pane that's part of the layout, in which case it would capture your input, but it wouldn't be truly no modal. I don't really like modal dialogues. They're usually a big pain in the bottom. But for now, the simplest thing to implement would be that. And then just have it disappear when you're not using it. Okay, so that's going to set to where it is. That's going to render it. And then we've got this captured. I think the first thing to implement is if input controls input to control escape. So escape will drop you out of it. I think anything else is probably going to do something special. So here we're going to say main current input capture equals nothing. Is that a thing I can do? So the problem here is that I don't think I have a pane type for nothing. So this is going to start at 0 unless I ask it to start at 1. So I think I'll start it at 1, which solves this problem. I can now have a 0 value, which essentially means no pane type. or no captured input. I might put a little note over here because we might change the way this works. I'm probably going to change the way that works. So just a little note to fix that when I do. And the other thing I need to do is set main file select pane to be not enabled anymore. Enabled equals false. And here, when we hit this one, we need to set it to be enabled. So I think that is enough to get the capturing working. Okay, what we got here? Oh, I actually need to add it as a thing. And it can be ease02 current input capture. I'm going to just stick this inside the temporary bit here because I don't think they're going to last long. And I need to create that pane as well because that also doesn't exist. File select pane. Probably need to initialize that to something. So further up here we've got all the initialization code for all the panes. So I just need to do something similar here for this menu pane. Change these. Oops. I'm not sure I want a title here. Certainly have a font. Initialize the bounds to that, to empty. And there we go. This can be file select pane. That should give us something basic. Now I need render pane to do something reasonable. So just thinking now about the fact that if you don't have a title, you probably don't want to do some stuff. But it's probably not too bad if I do the layout, because the layout doesn't seem to rob any space from the content. They're currently overlaid on top of each other, which may not be good actually. So I'm going to leave a little note here, because I think I've seen this before, as a kind of, it looks a bit janky and weird on the watch pane, that the content of the pane goes underneath the title. So title should bounds should not overlap content, I think. Okay, render pane content. Okay, so that doesn't do anything special. Render pane title bar. So here I'm going to say if pane title, then do this. Yeah, okay. So in here I would need a case for... I'm going to leave that off now. I'm just going to put to do in because I don't have time to implement it. So I'm going to put like a here note to remind me that I need to do this next time. Implement pane type file select. But I do want to test what I've got, so let's see if they can get to compile. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just add a little printout for when you press a key when it's captured. Okay, so what's this? No operator staff or float and v2. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you can't do that. Should be able to do that. Really? Really? There's no multiplication. I'm going to have multiplication. Change your mind. I'll change A for float or F. Let's change B for B vector. Yeah, okay. I just did that on the wrong functions. Oh well. Do on this one as well. Here we can change them back, because I think actually it made more sense the other way around, because A was not a float in that one. A was a vector, and B was a vector, but not any more special than A. Okay, so can I do this now? Is this going to be happy with me? And I prefer this the other way around. I think what I've been doing before is just doing like creating a vector with the same value in both x and y, and using Handmade product. Okay. Oh yes, now it compiles. I want to add something to say that a key was captured. here. Oh. I don't know how I'm gonna do key capture for arbitrary key presses. That's something I've been avoiding, I think. Oops. I think what I'll do is I'll say capture up and down for now, because those are probably the ones I want to use. I do actually want to have a filter in there where you can type in part of or some characters, and it will fuzzy search against the name of the file. There we go. I think that should be enough to test this out, and then I will finish. Okay, so what I wanted to do was do Control F. Well, it's partially working. Doing Control F did mean that up and down stopped working on my text entry here, and pressing Escape did start it working again. But I'm not getting the output that the captured keys were happening. Ah, haha. Well, schoolboy error. That's because you need to put new lines on the end if you want it to print out properly. But it was printing it, so that's good. Okay, so we've got something there. Just need to, next time, display the actual content of that. I'm just going to leave that there, I'm not going to commit it. And that's going to be me for today, and I'll be continuing work on this sometime, likely this weekend. If not, then Monday. Yeah, thanks very much for joining me, or for watching if you're watching the on-demand. And more from me next time. Bye.